10 interesting psychology facts about human behavior that you've already healed more than you realize. Have you ever wondered if you're still carrying the pain of your past? Or if, without even realizing it, you've already begun to heal? Maybe you've noticed small shifts in how you feel, think, or respond, but doubted if they really meant anything. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, taught us that healing doesn't arrive with applause or fireworks. It comes quietly, in how we live, how we let go, and how we begin to choose differently. Healing rarely bursts in like a storm. Instead, it seeps in like dawn through a darkened room. Slow, gentle, persistent. Maybe you think you're still broken because the light isn't blinding yet, but healing isn't the absence of pain. It's the transformation of it. Today, we're going to explore 10 subtle but powerful signs that you've already healed more than you realize. And sign number 7 may shift how you see your entire emotional history. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and let's dive deep into your inner transformation. Now let's begin with the first, and perhaps most sacred, sign. Sign number 1. You no longer abandon yourself to be chosen. Once, you may have twisted yourself into versions that weren't yours to wear. You said yes when you meant no. You tolerated distance, silence, manipulation, just to keep love close. But healing changes that. You no longer beg to be chosen. You no longer betray your boundaries to maintain a bond. You don't shrink your truth to make someone else comfortable. Jung believed individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires facing the fear of rejection. And now, instead of abandoning yourself to belong, you stay with your truth, your needs, your voice, even if it costs you someone who couldn't hold them. That's not ego, that's healing. And that shift, that quiet moment where you choose yourself, that's the first and rarest sign. You've already healed more than you know. Sign number 2, you no longer chase closure. There was a time when silence haunted you. You replayed old conversations like broken records, hoping a missing piece would finally click into place. You waited for apologies, for explanations, for someone to make it make sense. But healing whispers something different. Now, you release the need to understand every ending. Not because it didn't matter, but because you finally do. You've stopped needing someone else to validate your pain in order for it to be real. Carl Jung believed that closure isn't something others give us. It's something we grow into. And when you can walk away from unfinished stories without bitterness, that's not indifference. That's emotional freedom. Sign number 3. You no longer need to be understood. You used to ache to be seen, to have someone truly get you. Your depth, your sensitivity, your soul. You explained yourself, softened your edges, translated your pain into palatable pieces just to feel accepted. But healing has rewritten that need. Now you no longer perform for connection. You no longer trade your truth for temporary closeness. If someone misunderstands you, you don't chase clarity, you choose peace. Carl Jung taught that people reject in others what they haven't yet faced in themselves. So if your presence makes someone uncomfortable, you don't shrink, you don't bend, you stay rooted. Validation is no longer your oxygen. Peace is. That's healing. Sign number 4. You stop romanticizing the past. Once, the past felt like home. You replayed old memories like lullabies, longing for moments, people, or versions of yourself that no longer exist. Nostalgia clung to you like the scent of a life you thought you'd never outgrow. But healing shifts the lens. You no longer see the past as something to return to. You see it as a teacher, a mirror, a map, a part of you, not a place to live in. Carl Jung once warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You've made it conscious. You've stopped mistaking comfort for alignment, and you've started honoring how far you've come, instead of grieving who you used to be. That's not forgetting, that's healing. Sign number 5. You find peace in solitude. There was a time when being alone felt like abandonment. You filled the silence with noise, people, distractions, anything to avoid sitting with yourself. But now, solitude feels like home. You don't run from the quiet. You rest in it. You meet yourself there, without judgment, without masks. You sit with your shadow. You reflect. You exhale. Carl Jung believed that true wholeness doesn't come from rejecting our darkness, but from integrating it. And when your own presence becomes a sanctuary, not a punishment, it's one of the most sacred signs of healing. You've returned to yourself. Sign number 6. You respond, not react. You used to be swept away by every emotional tide, triggered by a look, shaken by a word, hijacked by wounds that hadn't healed. But now, there's a pause, a breath, a choice. You don't suppress your emotions. You understand them. You hold space for them without letting them steer the wheel. Carl Jung once said, "Emotions are not obstacles to be removed, but forces to be understood." And when you can feel deeply without reacting destructively, that isn't weakness. That's emotional mastery. That's healing in motion. Sign number 7. You begin to create instead of escape. There was a time when pain felt unbearable, so you ran into noise, into numbing, into anything that kept you from feeling it. Endless scrolling, overworking, drinking, chasing distractions dressed as relief. But now, you pause, you feel, you create, you begin to write, paint, pray, build. You alchemize the ache, you shape something sacred from what once shattered you. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming whole by giving form to what was once hidden in the unconscious. You no longer escape the fire. You gather its ashes and make art with them. Sign number 8. You recognize and outgrow old patterns. There was a time when chaos felt like home. You mistook anxiety for chemistry, silence for safety, self-abandonment for love. Familiar didn't mean healthy, but it felt like gravity. Now, those old patterns don't pull you in. They feel foreign, even dull. Because healing rewires your attraction. It sharpens your awareness. It quiets the parts of you that once called pain normal. Carl Jung warned, what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fate. But you did the work. You faced the mirror. And with that awareness, you didn't just notice the pattern, you broke it. Sign number 9. You no longer chase. Unavailable love. There was a time you survived on breadcrumbs, fighting to be chosen. Staying where affection was rationed, not given. Because somewhere inside, you believed love had to be earned, even at the cost of yourself. But healing brings a quieter truth. I deserve peace. Now, you no longer chase those who pull away. You don't confuse withholding with mystery, or chaos with connection. Carl Jung taught that our unmet needs often seek repetition, not resolution. But you've stopped repeating. You've started remembering your worth. You no longer abandon yourself for love that won't stay, and that isn't loss. Sign number 10. You no longer confuse anxiety with excitement. Once, those butterflies in your stomach felt electric. A thrilling rush, a sign you were alive. But with healing comes a new awareness. You've learned to tell the difference between nervous system chaos and the quiet pulse of true inner alignment. You no longer mistake adrenaline for intuition. You're learning to listen deeply to your body's wisdom, to distinguish fear from growth. Carl Jung believed that transformation is not just mental, but deeply embodied. This clarity, this grounded knowing, is not just healing. It's the soul stepping fully into itself, its liberation. Healing doesn't arrive with loud announcements. It doesn't always come with epiphanies or tears. Most often, it looks like quiet strength, like breathing before speaking, like solitude that soothes you, like loving yourself without needing proof. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." If you recognized even one of these signs in yourself, it means this: you're awakening, you're healing, and you're far more whole than you once believed. If you're serious about healing, hit subscribe now. Join the community that's doing the real work. No shortcuts, no excuses, and share this with someone who needs to know their progress matters. I've linked another video right here that dives deeper into healing and transformation. Go watch it next to keep your journey moving forward. drop a comment. What sign surprised you most? Let's talk.